Hello, fellow equestrians. Today is a very exciting topic. It is, what do you do when a horse bucks, or if your horse bucks with you? And this is something, a lot of riders, their fears, or they lose their confidence because they're worried that their horse might buck them off, or they might fall off, they might get injured. So this is a big topic, and this is something very important. And before I dive in too much, I do want to say, obviously, this video is kind of understanding that you have already checked your horse for, the saddle is fitting correctly, that they're not having any kind of injuries or, something like that. So this video is for people who want to know what to do if their horse is bucking, and it's not related to improper saddle fit, or, them experiencing a little bit of discomfort or even pain. Maybe even like they don't like the bit that you're using, like whatever it is. Okay, this video is not about that. It's not about tack things. It's not about horse being injured. So what do you do if your horse is bucking with you? Now, this is a huge conversation and a huge topic. And of course, I could go in all kinds of different directions. But the first thing, and like the biggest thing that I want to make very clear, okay, what do you do if your horse bucks with you? First of all, if your horse didn't want you off, they probably wouldn't buck. Okay, just saying. So if you are feeling like you have a horse and when you get on, it feels like a ticking time bomb, okay, a huge thing is that you probably got on this horse without doing a little bit of other homework. Okay, some other homework is involved. Now, that is something that I go into more detail in our Speaking the Horse Language course. And I'm super excited because I just dropped on Amazon the Speaking the Horse Language book. So if you haven't gone and checked it out already, head over to Amazon. It's available worldwide. Speaking the Horse Language. Okay, that is like the number one thing that you need. You need to know how to speak their language to prevent your horse from wanting to buck you off, because there's something happening prior to them bucking. Okay, it's almost never just the horse decided one day to buck. Okay, yes, sure, there's different factors. They could be feeling frisky or energetic, or the seasons, or this, or the weather change, or whatever. Like, there's always excuses, like human excuses, that we try and give our horses for why they might be bucking. But bottom line, if your horse trusts you and respects you and they don't want you off, they're not going to try and buck you off. I have two mares, and a lot of people, they're like, oh, well, mares are moody, or mares are this, or blah. But guess what? Neither one of them have ever, even when they're frisky. I mean, we have a thoroughbred. She's frisky. She went 6 months. She had an injury, unfortunately. She went 6 months without being ridden. And then we saddled her up and we rode her. Obviously we did some other things with her, but, she didn't even think about it. She didn't even think about it. So that's the biggest thing that I want to say is make sure that you've done your homework and that the horses don't really have a reason to want to buck you off. So that's kind of the biggest thing that I'm going to say. Now for the actual like strategies and tactics of, okay, how do you actually ride a buck, or what do you do if a horse starts bucking with you? Okay, hypothetically here, if a horse starts bucking with you, there is a couple of things which you can do, okay? And I know that you might have seen like rodeo riders. So we do have somebody that says young horse happy after a jump or canter. It happens, like green horses, sometimes green horses, I love jumping green horses because you never know what they're going to do, like what happens in their little baby brains. Sometimes before a jump, they're bucking, and they're bucking after a jump, and they're over jumping, and they're taking off. Like if there's a ground pole, I had a thoroughbred horse. There was a ground pole, I think it was like a stride away, and then there was a second ground pole. So there was 2 ground poles involved in this grid. And that thoroughbred, that baby horse, for whatever reason, decided all of it was his jump. And he took off from the first pole over the 2 ground poles. And luckily it was a small little like cross rail or something. Like, he shouldn't have been jumping that much effort, but he did. And, so baby horses, they definitely have that option. They might give a little kick out, or they might give a little woohoo. Okay, so how do you ride it? And that's what I'm going to be, talking about right now. I still think that the Speaking the Horse Language, if you read the book, it's on Amazon. I still think a lot of the techniques in there is going to prevent your horse from even going there, because when you know how to communicate with them, then it's kind of off the table. Like it doesn't even occur to them that it's an option. So that's route number one. Route number two, how do you actually ride it? Now, first of all, the rodeo people, you know, they kind of have one hand in the air and they're like, woohoo, you know, they're kind of making a show of it. So that's not what riding a buck is. Obviously, in the real world, you have your two reins, or you have one reins, maybe one rein, maybe your neck reining or whatever. So you have your hands, you have your legs, you have your seat. So the first thing that you need to do, you need to sit back, okay? You need to lean back like you see those rodeo riders do, okay? They're leaning back. And the reason that this works, if you lean back, is because it forces your hips to move. It forces your seat to move with your horse. So when you're leaning back, and that's why the rodeo riders do it, when you're leaning back, yeah, it's going to push your legs forward. You're not going to win a dressage contest, a pretty contest, okay? Your leg's going to be pushed forward probably, and you're going to be leaning back. But it forces your seat to move with the motion of your horse. So when they start hopping around, you can stay on and ride through it, okay? So step one, you got to lean back. The second thing you need to do, okay, I always try and pick up their head with my reins. And, you know, you can kind of, if you can predict that they're about to buck before they actually buck, like if they feel like a ticking time bomb and it feels like it might be an option, they physically cannot buck if their head's in the air, okay? How do horses buck? Okay, step one, they slow down or they stop. Okay, they get really, really slow all of a sudden. And step two, their head goes in between their legs. Okay, their head goes boop down. So if I pick their head up, okay, I've now taken the wind out of their sails. They cannot buck. Okay, they can rear. That's a different option. That's a different video. But they can't buck. Okay, so if you pick their head up, okay, don't get in a fighting contest. Okay, you might like be able to pick their head up before it even happens. And guess what? This video is super boring because they don't buck. Okay, conversation over. But yeah, if they start to buck, then you need to get their head up. Okay, and same situation. I was trained at an equestrian college in the US, and almost every other horse was like bucking and rodeo, and it was ridiculous. But I was like the star student. So if a student fell off, it was always like, Krystal, go and ride that horse. And there was one horse, and I remember he was bronking and rodeo, and somehow I was staying on, but I didn't know how to stop him from continuing to do it. Okay, so that's where this comes in. Okay, leaning back is how you stay on. Picking their head up is how you stop them from continuing the bucking process. Okay, and then the third thing that you need, so one, you need to lean back. Two, you need to get their head up. And then the third and final thing that you need, any guesses? If you're watching live, comment in the chat here. Okay, I want to hear what you guys think the third and final thing is that you need. So just comment in the chat if you are watching. And even if you're joining me for the replay, you know, just comment, what do you think the third thing is that you need? We got to lean back. We got to get their heads up. Drum roll, drum roll. Okay, the third thing that you need to do to ride a bucking horse is to actually put your legs on. And a lot of people might think that sounds counterproductive. Like, wait a second, but if I put my legs on, then they're going to bolt with me. Or, oh, but then they're going to buck more because I'm putting my legs on. Okay, I didn't say kick your horse. I said put your legs on. Okay, that means contact with your legs. Okay, so we have somebody, they say, exactly. We want them to move forward. Okay, because guess what? The horse cannot buck if there is some forward motion. Yes, we've seen these superstar rodeo horses. It looks like they're kind of going a bit forward as they're bucking. But the actual bucking process, both legs are planted firmly into the ground and the two hind legs come up. In that moment of a buck, they're actually not moving. Okay, they're not moving. When they kind of land, their hind legs land back on the arena footing, then they might leap forward and do a second buck, okay? But the buck in itself, they're not moving forward, okay? So if you put your legs on and you send them forward, they actually physically cannot buck. And it's the same for rearing. I know that's a different video, but it's the same. It's the same for rearing, okay? They can't. When they rear, what do? It's almost like the bucking, but in reverse, okay? Instead of their front legs planting, their hind legs plant, and their front legs go crazy, okay? They cannot do these naughty things if they are going forward. So you need to put your legs on, give them a little squeeze, okay? If you have a little riding crop or something, like maybe that's the time that you give them a little tap if they don't listen to your legs. But honestly, I've never really had that be an issue. Usually, in my personal experience, and I've ridden a lot of bucking horses, in my personal experience, having a whip or having spurs might even make it worse because now they have a reason to be grumpy with you. And again, that's where the speaking the horse language comes in to this equation. If you speak their language, if you have a horse that never wants to buck you off, then this is a really boring video because your horse is never, ever going to buck with you. It's not even going to be an option. They're not even going to think about it. Okay. But you need to sit back, pick their head up, and give them a little squeeze. Give them a little squeeze with your legs and send them forward. Okay. And you need to do all of three of those things pretty quickly. Okay. It happens very quickly. It happens, you know, sometimes you're not really ready for it and you're not really expecting it. If the horse is a little bit cheeky, then they might try and get you off balance in order to buck you off. So there might be a small little crow hop or something leading up to the big buck. But you know what? That trick isn't going to work if you do these three things. Okay. If you're sitting a little bit back and if you're sending them forward and you have their head up, then even if they did a cheeky little crow hop just before the big buck, they're not going to be able to do the actual buck. Okay. And they're just going to move on with their day. So this is definitely, you know, hopefully this has been helpful. And earlier when we had, you know, somebody commenting, what about after a jump or in canter? So it's the same thing during the jump. Okay. During the jump, maybe my reins are, you know, coming forward and maybe I lose my contact a little bit, or I don't know what, but guess what? It's still the same. As soon as you land, if you expect that your baby horse is going to give a little kick, a little woohoo. Okay. If you, as soon as you land, have their head up and you're sitting slightly back, and you send them forward, it's game over. They're not going to be able to do a little woohoo buck or a little kick. So hopefully you guys have found this video helpful. It seems so simple, and that's what I want you guys to understand. Like, it is so simple, the bucking, okay? During the buck, it's not easy to ride, okay? But it's so simple to shut it down if you use these three things, which I taught you in this video, okay? So again, it seems simple, okay? It's simple, but it's not easy. Yeah, it requires a little bit of mental fortitude as well on your part as the rider in order to be able to sit back and send the horse forward. And when I say sit back, I mean sit back. Okay. I don't need you to win a dressage ribbon in that moment. Okay. Sit back. I don't care if you don't look pretty. I don't care. Sit back. Pick their head up. I don't need them to be in a working frame or on the vertical. I don't care. Okay. If your horse is about to buck, I don't care. You need to sit back, send them forward. Okay, so hopefully this has demystified it a little bit. I know there might be other YouTubers that make it seem like some big drama show or whatever. Like it, we get so much brownie points as trainers. If it's like, oh, we can ride a buck, you know, then you should pay me more money because look how awesome of a rider I am because I can ride bucking horses. Well, to me, you know, I think if you're a really good trainer, that horse isn't going to try and buck you off. That's what I think. So I don't want to impress you guys by riding bucking horses and showing you how to sit on a buck. I want to impress you guys by showing you how to make your horse never buck. And if it maybe almost happens, you shut it down. You prevent it before it even gets there. So again, hopefully you guys have found this video helpful. If you haven't already found the Speaking the Horse Language book, head over to Amazon. Like I just launched it. I don't even have the physical hard copy with me yet. It's on its way here. Like I'm really excited to see it. It's in the mail. So as soon as I have a physical hard copy, I'm going to show you guys. But yeah, you guys can order it on Kindle or on Amazon. It's worldwide right now, Speaking the Horse Language. And this is one of the conversations that I do talk in that book is how to prevent your horse from having these conversations. How do we get your horse so that you don't have to learn how to ride a buck? Okay. So thank you so much. Thank you, Facebook user. Thank you so much for joining me today. And just let me know in the chat as well if you have any other topics or questions or things which you want me to answer in next week's video. I love it when I hear from you guys and I get an email or something. It always makes me super excited. And yeah, that's the reason why I do these videos. So if you guys don't tell me topics, I might just, you know, have a vacation like a normal person. So yeah, thank you guys for watching and I will see you guys next week.